we go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. This is our second webinar dedicated to trying to help with your channel concerns and building a channel ecosystem or improving on one existing channel ecosystem that you may have. So I am Gilles Esposito, and I've been in the channel business and partnerships and alliance business for 22 years now, and still at it. And I have with me Carlo, and I'll let him introduce himself right now. You're on mute, Carlo.
I'm Carlo Breda. I'm the CEO of Gorilla Corporation, and I've been in channels for pretty much 3 decades since I launched Gorilla's predecessor company. I'm located in San Francisco and in France. I'm back over to you, Gilles.
Well, so thank you everybody for joining us today. And what we're going to be talking about today. So for those of you who have been on the last one, we started by presenting what kind of problems we encounter in channels or in partnerships and alliances in general. We summarize this in a nice infographic that is available to all of you, and that has been posted on LinkedIn recently, as of today or yesterday, I believe, to summarize like 10 of the top problems that are commonly encountered. You can access this. It's been posted. I reposted it, but it's been also posted by the Gorilla Corporation. And for any of you that want to have direct access to this, as well as all the other things we're going to be publishing, you can reach out directly to Carlo or myself, or go to our LinkedIn feeds or the Gorilla Corporation LinkedIn feed, where you will find this information. So having been discussing some of the problems originally, now we're going to talk about where do we start, right? And rather than tackling every single step of all the dimension and all the topics that can be tackled into a channel ecosystem or partnership ecosystem, we thought it would be better to give some kind of a methodology at the beginning to do this. And so this is what we will be presenting today. So this methodology, by the way, is not the end-all be-all of all methodologies. There's many different approaches to this. This is something true and tested that I have been refining, that we have been refining over the years, and that seems to encompass pretty much everything that you can think of when talking about a partner ecosystem. So we will be presenting the big picture first of all, and in the subsequent webinars that we're going to have at the cadence of once a month throughout the next year, for starters, because it's probably going to take more than that to tackle everything. We will be diving into each and every one of those 6 dimensions that we're talking about, and then exploring in each and every dimension all the different themes that can be of interest for you. So can we show the wheel now, please? So here it is. Ta-da! So this is it. As you can see here, we have 6 dimensions: strategy, recruitment, enablement, motivation, sales and marketing, and management. So a word of caution about this. First of all, there is some aspects that are sequential and some aspects that are not sequential, but overall, what we recommend is to work all those things pretty much at the same time, maybe to the exception of the first one, which is the strategy. However, as you go through the journey of creating a partner ecosystem, you will probably discover, or you're probably already aware, that you will go back to the strategy one and work this, massage this, and do some adjustment to your strategy as your company evolves, as your organization evolves. But pretty much the idea is to first establish a strategy. So my definition of a strategy, everybody has its own definition. It usually gets extremely complicated, but for me, it's extremely simple. So I'm going to give you my take out of it, right? Strategy is to define 3 things. The first one is, where are you at today? That's your current status, the current stage. The second one is where is it that you want to be tomorrow? Tomorrow being defined by whatever plan you put in place, right? But that's your desired states. And the actual strategy is how are you going to get from point A, the current state, to point B, the desired state, right? So that will encompass a lot of things. And we'll dive a little bit later into this. The next one, once you're going to have established a strategy around your partnerships, will be probably to deck your ecosystem with partners. So this is where you're going to get into a recruitment phase, which is the second one here. But again, recruitment is an ongoing thing, and you're going to be doing recruitment over and over and over again. You will lose partners, you will get more partners, you will go different directions that requires different types of partners, and so on and so forth, right? Right after that, we have enablement, which, as defined by the word, is what are you going to do for your partners to make sure that they are performing up to your expectations or even better in this partnership, whether it is to resell products or to have joint IP or what it is that you may have in your strategy that you want to execute on, right? And we'll talk about all the elements of enablement and all that type of thing that can be put into place to make sure that your partner are decked with everything they need to be performing again up to expectation or even better. Then we'll talk about sales and marketing and motivation. Those two usually come together, so we have to put one before the other. But again, this is not sequential, right? Motivation is just that. What are all the tricks of the trade that you can put in place to make sure that you get as much mind share as possible from your partner so that they spend more time on your solutions rather than the time they spend on other solution. And in this case, in the case of partnerships, something I mentioned in the previous session we had, it is important to understand that when talking about partners and when in an environment that is a pure resale environment, your competition is not just the people that are doing the same thing as you're doing. Your competition is everybody on the line card of that particular partner, because the reps there will have 8 hours a day or maybe 10 hours a day. They work hard to promote things, and if they have already 250 product lines on their line card on their portfolio, the goal for you is to make sure that they spend at least a little bit of time on your solutions to go and pitch it to their customers and their prospects, right? And sales and marketing here is extremely important as well. It's part of the enablement, part of the motivation, but we wanted to dedicate a specific segment to this because there's many things falling into this, as you can imagine, right? Your own sales teams and your own marketing team are extremely instrumental to making sure that your ecosystem is going to be performing. And one of the problem we extracted from the first session we presented, one things that come back very often is the concept that partnership organization within a company or within any organization are usually extremely siloed, right? So you operate with the partners a lot. The sales are doing their stuff, marketing is doing their stuff. Sometimes you have dedicated marketing within the partnership organization, but very often, especially for smaller companies, startups, and scale ups, you do not have a dedicated partner person for marketing person for the partners, right? So we'll talk about how to interact with sales and marketing and how this entire thing is de facto a whole village initiative, right? In the sense that everybody in an organization should be concerned by partnerships as partnerships are evolving, right? And last but not least, management. So management is how you tie all of this together, right? How you measure the KPIs, how you make sure that you have the right people doing the right job, the right connectors between different partners, especially in the case of multi-parties partnerships, right? Where you may have multiple companies partnering into something, not only in the resale space, but also in the technology partnerships and so on and so forth. As I said, how do you measure that based on the strategy and the goals you fixed yourselves? You're doing good or you need improvement, what improvement you need, how you tweak that, and so on and so forth. So that's pretty much it. So now I'm going to let Carlo dive in this a little bit and tell me if I missed anything, but pretty much that's what it is.
I think you hit all the high points absolutely beautifully, Gilles. It, it's it is a flywheel, and like you said, all of the elements have got to run concurrently. With the exception, as you said, the strategy piece has got to be really well thought out at the very beginning. But once you're live, that strategy document doesn't sit in the drawer. It's something that you keep on refining, because um, plans change all the time. Realities change; they hit you up in ways that you don't expect. The strategy piece is really the most important of all. And yeah, as you build out, all of these become very important realities. And I think if I can just comment in terms of recruitment, it's an activity that should never ever stop. We're in the previous session, we alluded to the fact that there's Pareto's law. So if your business plan calls for, let's say, 100 partners to deliver a sales number, you probably want to have 10 times that in order to allow for the Pareto effect, right? Or at least, at least 5 times that for the 80-20 rule. The partners will, they'll become checked out. They'll become loyal to a different vendor, and you'll want to carry on recruiting to replace. Otherwise, your channel will die out. We also commented last time, and I just want to bring it back up. There's many different kinds of channel relationships that you need to consider in an ecosystem. Today's ecosystem is not just made up of transactional partners. You'll want to consider bringing on influencers, referral partners, implementation partners, service-only partners, consulting-only partners. There are so many different things that you have to consider, and the recruitment process for all of these is different. So it's quite an enterprise to build out a channel, and it's a beautiful thing to do. It is really fun, and something that will keep you busy for forever. The enablement side, I just want to comment on the enablement side, because so often I find that clients relate enablement to just training. So the conversations sometimes are unexpected. So sometimes the clients will say, well, yeah, we have enablement because we've got a training deck, or we have an LMS system in place. So we have enablement, but enablement is so much more than that. And maybe in this section we'll allude a little bit more to that, but then we'll have dedicated discussions on the detail of all of the things that enablement means.
Absolutely.
Right. So motivation, incentives, promotions, how to keep a channel animated and excited. There's a lot of debate around that. I find that in today's climate, a lot of vendors are saying, yeah, but we're just wasting money. We don't want to do incentives anymore. They don't work. And in other cases, there may be complications. Who gets the money, the individual or the actual partner, reseller, corporation? So it's a complex thing, but it's essential. I really believe, personally, I believe in incentives and promotions. I think that so much can be achieved. I've seen them work so beautifully when a little bit of forethought and effort goes into it. And sales and marketing. This week, even, I've been having several conversations around sales and marketing with larger enterprises. And like you said, Jill, quite rightly, the reality is smaller partners don't have dedicated marketing people, and they tend to fulfill the technical capabilities. They have sales capabilities, but from a marketing standpoint, they're quite often they don't have the expertise or the staff to be able to deliver a co-marketing with a vendor. With the larger partners, you're going to fight for bandwidth. They are very skilled. Some of the partners are very large. They have maybe even hundreds of people in marketing. And for you to squeeze in your campaign or your idea for your vendor, if you're a smaller vendor, good luck. Yeah. It's not easy. So and even if you're a significant vendor, there's just the competitive pressure there to get in and have the conversation is a challenge. We were discussing that just recently. What do you do? Do you want to invest time in more FaceTime, meeting people, taking them out for lunch to build a relationship of trust, or can it all be done programmatically? To what extent Can you have it all automated, and to what extent do you actually need to invest in the relationship? And then there's the economies. It's very expensive to invest in relationships with partners, in, like, high touch management relationships, but high touch is what works. So how far can you go down economically and still deliver tremendous results and tremendous return on marketing investment? And
Yep.
so yeah, that's just my observations on the very interesting points that you brought up, Jill. Back over to you.
So yeah, so a couple things I want to react to, right? To what you said and all that. It's complex, first of all, right? And I'll be showing something a little bit later to show you, exactly the extent of all the themes that you have under those six dimensional that, and we'll dive into some of them a little bit more in depth in the subsequent um, webinars that we're going to be conducting. But um, above all of this, above the wheel was the six different dimensional that, and there is an element of culture that is really important, and we talked about this in the previous session when talking about the problems, right? um, Everybody's interested in having partners that are going to be, reselling for you, but not everybody, but a lot of companies, especially, startups and all that, smaller companies for the time being, approach this very lightly, and that's a big problem, right? It's uh, One of the recommendation is there has to be sensitivity at the highest level, and by the highest level, I'm talking about, the CEO, the investors, the C-suite, as to two things. Number one, it's in this day and age, it is really important to have a partner ecosystem, because there are no companies, absolutely none, that can do it alone. And you can define it at this point, but if you look at companies, again, the size of AWS, the size of Google, the size of Microsoft, IBM, they have extensive partner ecosystems, despite the fact that some of these companies have also extensive deep pockets, and they could put thousands of salespeople out there and do their stuff, but they don't. They don't, because they wouldn't be able to scale to the extent of what they want to scale in their own strategy without those partners. And those partners are not of equal size to them. Some of them are, right? They're going to be, of course, they're going to be having relationship with the Accentures of the world and other companies of that caliber. When it comes to GSI, for example, or when it comes to MSSPs, you're going to see them dealing with the Optives of the world and the Guide Points and other company of that caliber. However, they also have extremely small partners, because canvassing the entire scope of all the geos, all the industries, and all the possibilities that they have to promote their own solution or their joint solutions, because they have a lot of joint solution initiatives, is going to be something they absolutely need to do with a plethora of partners, right? So you take the OCP program at Microsoft, and you have like 40,000 entities down there, right? Partners of Microsoft, of all types of partners, right? But that's because at the very top and very early on, and it took them years to develop this, right, to get to the point where they're at today, and they have a very beautiful program, or I should say, very beautiful programs, because they have more than one, obviously. It came from the top, always. And the intent was very, very clear from the top, that priority should be put on those partnerships, and they should make sure that they, being the people working at Microsoft, should make sure that they're very sensitive to the fact that partnering is important, and you take it lightly, right? Very often, as I mentioned at the beginning, it's an afterthought, and that's a problem, right? So as the strategy is being designed, it is really, really important that part of the strategy is not an outside strategy only to, make sure that you understand the market, your go-to-market, and your routes to market, and all those type of things, right? Your competition, how you're going to align your sales, and all that kind of stuff, and all that, da, da, da. All this is great and good, and I'll show the different themes under that particular dimension and all the others. What's really important, as well as you design your strategy, is to have an internal strategy, or at least, an internal intent to make sure that all of this is really really important. I have a question here about a gentleman in the audience that asked the about the relationship factors. So that's something we talked about last time, right? Um, when I want to oversimplify the complexity of a partner ecosystem, a partnership ecosystem, and I want to talk, and people ask me when I consult or when I talk to peers or that kind of stuff, and ask me, we share things, and they're like, what are the three most important thing you may have to put in place or to ensure that are very functional to make sure that a partnership is working. And this is not a one size fit all, by the way. It's going to vary differently depending on the type of partners, and within the same type of partners, depending on the partners, right? There are three things, and I'm saying this for you, Thierry. One of them is the first one, the most important of all of them, as always, is relationships. That's it. Relationships are extremely important. And in another aspect of what I'm doing, working for a think tank that dedicates itself to the betterment of partnerships and collaboration, we have a council dedicated to partnerships and alliances, and and by the way, we're accepting members, so reach out to me if you're interested in joining. We talk a lot about something called the connector. And the connector is usually referred to us by the person that is going to be in charge of driving a partnership. And the relationship aspect and quality of that connector is paramount. It's extremely important that you have this in place and it works. So when you build a team of channel managers, to take it simply, it is important that you have people that are likable and that are going to be able to create those partnerships and nurture those partnerships. It's very similar to sales at this point, but a partnership is a form of sale, right? And making it work, having people on the other side of the partnership that are willing to engage with you, first of all, and that are willing to keep the fire alive, will heavily depend on this quality of relationships, right? It's and it's a key factor as you build your own teams to have people that can do that, right? Where empathy is strong, when the desire to help each other is strong and really perceived by the other side, right? So that's one of the three things. The other two are ease of doing business, which we talk quite a bit about, and the other one is relevance, which we can dive into this, and we'll probably have a session specific to this, right? But for the time being, going back to the strategy, my point is to say it is important to design an internal strategy where people are going to understand, and by people I mean the whole village again, are going to understand where is it that you want to go and what it is that needs to be put in place, and that it's not an afterthought. It's really a strong capital critical initiative from the company to build a partnership ecosystem. In one of my latest adventures in the corporate space, I worked for a startup that didn't get that. I mean, they kept saying it's really important to us, partners, this and that, right? But every time we were explaining as a team what needed to be done and achieved to be able to even start scratching the surface of the ecosystem and start building the foundation, it was put back. It was just not a priority, right? And so when you factor this with the fact that to build an infrastructure and to start developing an ecosystem of partners that start bringing in revenue and those type of things, you're pretty much doubling the time of when you build a sales team. And the C-suite usually sees that, right? They're like, well, okay, well, we can invest in partners, but what you're telling me is that to build everything, right? To do all the enablement pieces and create all the collateral and create the training and recruiting the partners, and then, starting to feel the love from them and so on and so forth, and starting to see opportunities coming in and then closing them and so on and so forth. It's going to take a much longer time than it is to just get salespeople and have them canvas the territory and do what they need to do. It's true. It's absolutely true. However, you're never going to be able to scale with a sales team the same way you're going to be scaling with an ecosystem of partners. or you would be able to do. I mean, if it was possible at a reasonable cost, I guarantee you that all the Googles of the world and Microsoft would just do that, and they don't. The reason is the cost would be astronomical to be able to beat what you can do with a efficient partner ecosystem. Because face it, when we talk about just simple resale channels, and I say simple, it's not simple, but as opposed to complex partnerships and alliances, you pay your partners when they sell. You pay your salespeople every month, no matter whether or not they sell or whatnot. But so it's very important a strategy that at the beginning that everybody understand that, right? It's a heavy airplane, and it's going to take a long runway to take off as opposed to sales. I'm not saying it's one or the other. Actually, we may have a session where we talk about hybrid strategy between sales, direct sales and indirect sales, because this is something that works and that I've been deploying quite a few times. But it's if you put all your eggs on the sales team and you're not allowing your partnership ecosystem to develop with the baseline of what needs to be done for the partner to start thinking about you every day, then you're going to end up having what more than 70% of the partner ecosystems look like, which is you've recruited a ton of partners, right? Under the promises that they were going to do great thing and have, make buku money out of you or have a lot of benefits coming out of these partnerships, and then you don't support it. You don't have the resources to support it. You don't feed it. You don't train it. You don't motivate it. You don't manage it or do it poorly. And the only thing your channel managers are doing is recruiting new partners and then coming to them at the end of the month or end of the quarter and say, hey, what do you have for me in the pipe, right? That's not working. But anyway, any comments on that, Carlo? You want to bounce on it a little bit, or?
Yeah. Yeah, fundamentally, we're consultants, right? And so, we talk to clients, and the biggest thing, the biggest surprising question I get about relationships is, um, folks say, and I noticed one thing is I think worth saying. When a company is really, really big, like beyond the $10 billion level, they generally get it. At that point, they've got it sorted, right? But it's surprising that even companies that are between the 1 billion and the 10 billion mark, many of them don't get it, right? So what they'll do is that they'll invest in a fabulous portal, right? And they'll have a phenomenal Salesforce portal that costs millions of dollars to configure, and they're all happy, and they put all of the marketing collaterals, all of the technical training, everything that really pertains to this wheel on the system, and then they wait for the partners to launch into the system and use it and be happy, launch campaigns and draw down on information. And what I hear is we've got virtually no partners coming to our portal, and that's a very, very disappointing reality after investing so much time of so many highly paid executives, plus the budget for a platform like Salesforce that needs to be configured at millions of dollars. To then have no partner engagement and interaction is a blow. And that's when they come to us and they say, well, what can we do? How can we get partners to use this investment that we created for them, right? And the answer is relationships, because folks think that everything is going to happen digitally, and yes, digital helps a lot, but at the end of the day, it's just not enough, right? It does not replace the care. You cannot partner. You
No,
cannot really
it
partner.
never does. There's no alternative to that aspect of things, right? That's
Right.
always on top of. That's the fire of your in your kitchen, and I've seen this demonstrated so many times. I've seen people having team that were very caring and very likable and all that, and the partners picking up the ball for them for the vendor every time they would drop it and helping them left, right, center all the time, based on the quality of this relationship, based on the care they could feel, based on sorry, but it this way, based on the love they would get from that particular
Right.
vendor, which is not the vendor, which is the people working there, right? And I've seen the opposite as well. I've seen companies that were extremely efficient in the way they structure their programs, very smart about it, very things very well built, and have the wrong people taking their team. But that's not. I should say this is not proper to channels, right, or to partnering. It's proper to every environment and every department that interacts with external entities within an organization. And I would say to this extent, even in their internal interaction, you have this phenomenon happening all the time. So it's important to have again, the right people that are motivated for the right reason, and so on and so forth. But going back to what you were saying, yeah, I mean it's still you know um, astonish me all the time to see that a lot of company understand what is needed, what needs to be done, and they start the right path, right? You just as the saying goes, you think big, you start small, and you act as fast as possible, right? But you got to start small, and you got to start somewhere. And since it's going to take a long time to get to a level of maturity in mastering your ecosystem, you got to start as early as possible, right? Because the longer you're going to delay the things you need to do, the longer it's going to yield what you expect it to yield. So it's not something you when you put a business plan for a startup, for example, and more investors are thinking about this, which is great, right? I know a particular group that I interacted with quite a bit, and they have a dedicated team within that investment group. So I'm talking about venture capital company that has a dedicated team to make sure that the partnership aspect of things is part of the plan, is funded, and so on and so forth. And they come back, that particular group come back to all the companies they have in their portfolio regularly and say, where are you at? Show me your program, show me your plan, show me your progress, and so on and so forth, right? And every time they have a board meeting, that's one of the key topics they're discussing, right? Not expecting revenue from the get-go, but expecting that this building phase, this infrastructure phase that need to be built little by little is actually taken care of properly, right? So
So I have a big
it's
question.
important.
I have a big question for you, and I'll preamble that with what you just alluded to, which is the timing, right? And so this really pertains to startups that are looking to build up a channel. The reality check is that it takes about 1 year to build out the fundamentals of a channel and to start the outreach process. And it takes and you'll start to get results after a year, not before a year. That's the first thing. The second thing is, and people find it very difficult to justify an investment on that basis because they expect results tomorrow. But realistically, most in the tech industry anyway, sales cycles are, per se, are 3 to 6 months minimum anyway. So how can you expect the partners to propel into your channel and immediately get results within the first 12 months? It's not going to happen.
And
Yeah.
I'm going to comment on this once again, right? I keep telling all the customers being vendor in the sense of me consulting for channels or partnerships, right? It's like and this is something we captured as part of the 10 problems we have in the infographic that we published. It's like the days where vendors would pick their partners based on whatever criteria they had, this is gone. I mean, you can still do it, but as opposed to 20 years ago when they would guarantee that, when you were Hitachi or something like this. So I work at Hitachi in the partner environment for years, and it was a nightmare for the partners because Hitachi would tell no, yes, nah, maybe you, no, we don't want you. No, this is gone. This is completely gone. It's completely the reverse today. And I would battle this idea all the time. It's the reverse. Vendors are being chosen by partners. Partners are not being chosen by vendors. That's it. So it's really important that when you're going to come to them, because they don't want to waste their time, there's a plethora of things they can sell and resell and work with and integrate with if you're talking about technology partnerships, and consult with, and so on and so forth. And when you're going to come in front of those people, you're going to feel that you're being screened rather than what happened 20 years ago or even 10 years ago, where, they would approach vendor and say, hey, we want to resell you. Even the big ones,
It's true.
they don't have a spontaneous list of partners that say, oh, we would so like to resell you on this and that. And when that happens, it's because there's a deal already in the making, right? But other than that, you're going to be chosen.
So
It's not the reverse.
here's my big question. So since it takes time to build out the channel and to really start to get it functioning in a great way, you're talking about seeing the real results in years 2 and 3, especially year 3. It's a 3-year plan really to start to see proper results, to have a well functioning channel. So in the meantime, if you're a startup organization or a scale up that wants to scale up, you have to sell direct, right, to keep the to keep the machine running, right? So now here's the question: you start building out a direct sales culture inevitably by necessity, right? And the direct sales culture is what seems to work because you have a 6-month sales cycle and you get the deals in. The channel setup is so much more complicated. So you start building a culture of direct selling and of skepticism towards channel. And channel becomes something that is less known and less appreciated because they haven't allowed for that process to take place yet. So how do you go about then changing that culture once it's already ingrained? I won't say in the wrong way because it's necessary to sell direct at first to
I
have
get
an
it. Yeah.
of how it works and and also how to teach the channel, how to create the right kind of enablement, and finally, but how do you go about changing that culture at that point? Because
So there's
yeah,
many tricks to do this, right? But there's a general principle that if you educate your sales team to be channel friendly and partner friendly, with the right incentive, internal incentive to do that. For example, the biggest one being what we call channel neutrality, where a salesperson is going to be paid the same in commission, whether or not they sell through a partners or through a set of partners or direct. So some companies go even further than that. They apply a concept called channel positive, where when salespeople support the partners and sell with them versus them competing with them, they actually get paid more by doing this. So yes, that's the cost for a company, but at the same time, what does it do? Well, it seeds your channel ecosystem, right? Your channel ecosystem sees suddenly that they have a champion at the vendor to go and help them close deals, right? And at this point, what usually happens is that they're confident that they have the ability to close deal because they're going to have the top guns from the vendor organization coming and helping them pitching and closing. And that's only salespeople. It's also the pre-sales teams, the engineers, and that kind of stuff, because people are not going to learn and become as good as you are talking about your product, right? Than your sales team and your pre-sales team. So there's a plethora of things today. But again, as I mentioned at the beginning, that has to be part of the strategy where you're going to define if you're going to be a sell with partner or a sell through partner. Well, I would encourage everybody to drop the sell through model unless your gizmo is really easy to sell and they don't need any expertise and you're selling a widget pretty much. But that's not often the case. And over time, your partners will gain the maturity then they can that makes them able to fly solo, thus freeing the time of your salespeople and your pre-sales people to go take care of new partner in your ecosystem that don't have this expertise yet, right? And we see this all the time. That's a wheel. Your partner become more and more self-sufficient to the point that they can carry the entire sales cycle from initiation of a prospects all the way down to procurement, right? With everything in between, but not at the beginning. So you want your salespeople to do that. That has to be part of the strategy. That has to come from the top, telling the sales team your target, is not only to sell, but it's also to develop an ecosystem of partners that trust us, that are going to be supporting us, that are going to give us the mind share we need, that are going to be at some point so confident with us that they will open their book of customers, because I guarantee they're not going to do that from day one. Because now they feel confident the product is good enough and they have all the support they need to be able to insert that possibility of selling your solution into their existing customer base. A risk they will never take at the beginning, unless from the get-go. You can convince them that you're solid and that it's not going to be endangering the relationship with their customers, right? That type of thing. I've seen companies that actually put buckets in front of their sales team that says X% of your sales have to be indirect, right? And you have to support them. And I've seen over the plan over less than a decade, right? An evolution, companies like Itachi, companies like Kaspersky Lab, for which I consulted on this particular thing, where they've implemented a hybrid strategy for the sales team, where now you do not have a sales team and a channel team. You have an organization composed of people that are doing both, right? And those guys don't prospect anymore. They don't do anything. When they receive leads, they don't call the prospects. They call the partner because they know which partner already has a relationship with this particular target, this particular prospect, or they know which one would be the more adequate in their territory, and they go with them to meet with those organization, and they're in front of a potential customer together, the sales guy or the hybrid sales guy from the vendor and the sales guy from the partner, and they do the work together. That creates such a high level of trust, not only between these two guys, but also for the when you have a customer. And I've been in this position of buying where I could see the vendor representative and the partner representative working well together. That gives me a lot of confidence to buy from this group of people, because the first thing I'm thinking about is like, when shit is going to hit the fan, is there going to be a tennis game between the vendor and the partner and that kind of stuff? Or are they going to work together to fix my problems? Well, when I see those kinds of dynamics, I'm confident that they're going to work well together. More so than if I realize these two guys don't know each other, or if I see one independently from the other, right? But if I see there's a synergy between vendors and partners, I'm far more confident into doing something with them than I would be for. And that's not talking about the quality of the product, the solution, the features, the whatever, right? That's all things equal. So there's a ton of way to approach partnerships in a way that is from the get-go very collaborative between a direct sales team and an indirect sales team. And
I
it
love
can be applied, and we'll talk about it. And Carlo, before you jump on this, we have a bunch of questions we need to address. So
that's what I was doing. So I wanted to pick up on Mark Horner's excellent question, which is, can you speak to the importance of understanding how your partner's business model makes his money?
before we get, can we do it in order? Because we started with Thierry that was asking about a relationship, and then the next one is short-term vision versus long-term vision, also from Thierry. So, and then we can dive down to all of them. We have enough time, I think, to cover that. So Thierry is asking about the short-term vision versus long-term vision, which a lot prefer to have. Yes, that's a big problem, right? Because you think sales, people think about the sales cycle. Usually they don't think about the procurement cycle that should be part of the sales cycle. And I see it through recruitments and all that. When you talk to those companies, that you're like, what's your sales cycle? And they're like, oh, it's 3 to 6 months. And then you realize it's much longer than that. And so they're going to focus on this, trying to make money and to have a positive ROI out of an investment in an individual within 6 months, right? Trying to see it coming in within 6 months. Well, if you have to go on the partnership side with recruitment and then enablement and then all that kind of stuff, you're hiding. And usually what I say is that just take a simple rule. I don't know what the reality is because you would have to measure everything, but like just double it. On the best case scenario, double it, right? Double your sales cycle when you're going through partners and you don't have an ecosystem of partners yet. Yeah, you're going to recruit a partner before you can train them and enable them and make sure they see value and it really fits into their plan and it's really contributing to their bottom line, not only from the money transaction aspect, but also on how it completes the portfolio of what they're offering to their customers and their prospect. At a minimum, double it, right? Unless you're doing everything right, which you won't from the get-go. This will take years. You get to do that. So what happens? Well, exactly what you're saying. People prefer to look at the short-term thing versus the long-term thing. And again, the hybrid approach of things is a way to mitigate this somehow. But yes, you're going to have some sales direct faster than you're going to have some sales from your partner. However, as I said before, if you don't start building it early, you won't have early results. You will have delayed results the longer you delay the stuff. So you have to think about both long term and short term. You have to keep the lights on. I understand that. That's completely clear. But at the same time, you have to dedicate a certain amount of your resources to building the things that at some point will far exceed the ability of your salespeople to compete with the entirety of your channel if you have a good channel ecosystem, right? Because the scalability of a good channel ecosystem is infinite.
And on
Not,
that point,
not
on the long-term vision, I'd like to say that excuse me, on the long-term vision, it's a case of, yes, it is it's really important to have the long-term vision and to have that expectation. However, it's not just a waiting game. And I've seen that happen as well, that you just wait for the result to come. During the time between now and then, and that long-term goal time, milestone, you have to invest a lot in that relationship. So yes, long-term vision, but it's that vision is made up of like 1,000 steps, and you got to take those 1,000 steps patiently until you then get the results and the rewards that will come
yeah.
at the point of the long-term vision.
But
And
keeping in mind that the task that takes the longest to achieve are the one you take the longest to start. Just
yeah,
you got to keep this in mind. There's no magic wand in channels or anything. In
absolutely.
partnerships, it takes time for people to trust you, right? And for you to do the right thing and to understand what it is that is going to take you from 0% mind share to 1% mind share to 10% mind share and so
No,
on
I
and so
agree. I
on,
agree.
right?
And now on to understanding the business models. That's such an important thing, and that's something that again is not done sufficiently in industry. Even in the early days of Microsoft, back in the early days of Microsoft, I was a Microsoft partner, and I remember that they had this as a real issue. They did not understand. They did not take the time to understand, to really deeply understand the business model of their partners. So therefore, their approach to enablement, support, and even lead sharing was inappropriate. So you'd get the partners being asked to do things that they were not capable of doing, or it wasn't part of their bread and butter daily work. So, for instance, the most common scenario is partners that are transactional in nature and partners that are consultative in nature. And they have to be treated very, very differently. So the worst thing you can do is, for example, pass a transactional lead to a consulting partner who will say, "Well, what am I supposed to do with this? I'm not interested in selling, 150 licenses. That's not what I do. Why do you give me this lead? Why do you engage with me in that way?" And the reverse. A transactional partner does not want a consulting situation. A company needs to rebuild its data center, and they need a strategy for that. So yeah, understanding that business model is really important. So how do you do that? What we do at Gorilla is that we use scorecarding, right? So we define all of the dimensions of what are the key skills a partner has or needs to have, what their strategies are, right? So that you can align to their strategies. And we had that on the previous session. Aligning the partner strategy with the vendor strategy is so incredibly important. And so therefore scorecarding is really key. What we do is that we have static and dynamic scorecards. Static scorecards give us a Polaroid of where the partner is today, and based on that you can do segmentation, and then you can do outreach campaigns that are designed for the type of business model that the partner has. Whereas a dynamic scorecard is something that measures how a partner evolves. So as you develop a relationship with a partner and you set up a business plan with a partner or relationship plan, there will be an element of coming together, and so an element of evolution, and that will only occur through your support. And a dynamic scorecard actually tracks how the evolution is taking place. So I hope that helps answer Mark's question. Would you like to add something to that, Gilles?
No, I agree with you, and I wanted to throw this in with the disclosure that I've been leveraging the Gorilla services for uh, two organizations that I've been in so far to help accelerate some of those dimensions we're talking about and some of the themes in there because of the realization that using a third party that knows how to do this, has been doing it for multiple vendors over 2 or 3 decades, is more efficient use of the small budget I had at the time than trying to build it myself, right? On top of the fact that they benefit from the success and failures of many, many different vendors, so they know what works and they know what doesn't. So if money is an issue, resources are an issue and all that, or even if they're not, you can always leverage companies like Gorilla to help you because they're really specialized in all those elements that we're talking about today. So that was my little commercial moment. Now, after the break, let's go back to the questions. We had a question about the direct selling providing more control over our sales can be closed and that kind of stuff and all that. Yeah, absolutely. And is this a problem? Absolutely. Is this a problem specific between direct sellers and indirect sellers? Of course it is, right? Salespeople do not like to not be in control. But it's like, imagine a football team, and I'm talking about American football here. I can make the same analogy with what we call soccer in the US and is actually football. But remove the quarterback and try to have a team, run the play and that kind of stuff and all that. No, you're gonna have egos left, right, center. That's gonna, no, you pass the ball to me, or no, you let me run with it, or this and that. So you have a quarterback. That's the vendor, right? Let's think of it simply. That's the vendor. And what does he do? As the play starts, he gives the ball, and then he doesn't want the ball back. He wants people to go all the way to the end zone with it, right? So there's an element of trust is that when you have a well-oiled organization with vendors, by vendor I mean sellers, sorry, within the vendor organization that understand that if they start developing an ecosystem of partners around them, they're going to have a plethora of people working for them, closing deals for them. And all they need to do is support them and all that. Do they need control over the end user? No, they don't. Let it go. It's all right. Your goal in life is not to have, do this type of thing, because as a vendor, first of all, as a salesperson at a vendor, you will never, ever be able to compete with a partner. Why? Because you have one product line, or maybe you have multiple within your portfolio, but nothing to the extent of what a partner is capable to put on the table in front of a vendor. So when a vendor is going to talk about their cyber security strategy for the next 5 years, you're going to come with your one product versus partners are going to come with their dozens of products, and they're going to be able to wedge something. Do you think this over time is going to net them more mindshare from prospects and customers? Of course they are, because nobody has the time today to deal with 50 or 100 different vendors. Partners can do that. And that's why, a lot of buyers would rather deal with partners that aggregate all this knowledge and have only one throat to choke or a few throat to choke versus having to deal with an incredible amount of vendors that are available today. So that's for the answer to this particular one question
And
that we have about the more you have to kill this. It's like
Gilles, in relation to that, it's very much, I think, a case of culture and understanding purpose, right? So
yeah.
The purpose of a vendor is to create new technology, to create the best technology. That's the purpose, is developing R&D and coming up with what the market really needs. That is the purpose of a vendor. The purpose of a partner is to concoct the right solution, to put together the right ingredients and deliver a very effective solution for that particular customer. It's a very, very different reality. When a vendor wants to do the partner's job, it just can't sustain it, right? In the same way that a partner cannot do what the vendor job is. So it's critical, I think, to have a very clear idea of what the purpose is and live by the purpose of your business. And when you do that, you'll be successful.
Agreed. We have a couple more questions, Carlo. We have one about the importance of understanding a partner's business and how they make money. Yeah, Mark, absolutely 100%. And Carlo mentioned this a little bit earlier. It is so critical to have those discussion with your partners to say, you know, what do you want to do when you grow up as a partner, as a company, right? What would be ideal for you? What is your business plan? What it is that you're trying to achieve? Like, have an insight into their strategy and start tying into your own strategy and say how you guys can combine IDs and whatnot, and product and solution or joint stuff, whatever it is, to try to help your partner achieve their own goals, right? um, Very often, and that's a problem today, that they talk about at Forrester, they talk about at Gartner, the people that are specialized in studying how channels are evolving and this type of thing that we do. Carol and I talk about it all the time, right? It's like this mindset where the only thing you do is just, you sell my shit, and I'm going to tell you 20, I'm going to give you 20% or 25% or 15% out of that. This is gone. It's not, I mean, it's still there, it's still important, but if you isolate this and that's the only thing you do in front of your partner, you're not going to win a lot of mind share. I can guarantee you that. Now, if you approach them like Microsoft or Salesforce are doing, right? They look at it and they go like, and I always take the example of Salesforce because Salesforce actually sell direct all their stuff, but they always bring partners into the cycle. Why? Because selling a Salesforce license is going to yield something between $4 and $5 per dollar of licenses of additional services that Salesforce doesn't do, but their partners do, right? Microsoft does the exact same thing, right? When you sell their stuff, they give you money, but on top of that, they make sure there is adjacent streams of revenue that only their partners are carrying, right? So understanding what your the partner business model, what is it that they're trying to achieve, what are their capabilities, and all that is critical. That's one of them, right? And unless you want to jump on this, Carl, there's another question, and we need to wrap up after that. So there's a question about the need to be open to doing things differently. Yes, channels is full of surprises. I've been in there 22 years and I'm learning stuff every day. So and you have to have an open mind, and the approach of saying this is the way we do things and that's it. It doesn't work either, right? You're gonna have to be very open minded because partners are gonna say things to you that are very exotic sometimes,
Yeah.
and if you entertain that, that aspect of flexibility you can have, and that's valid for any size of company. It's harder for the bigger one than it is for the smaller one, understandably so, but you have to be open to that. So before we go to anything else, I wanted to share. How do I share on this platform? I wanted to present something.
Jill can maybe.
No, because she doesn't have this. Share screen. Yeah, I'm going to share that because I promised this at the beginning. Do you see this?
No.
You don't see my screen being shared? Yes, you do. I see it. So I told at the beginning we have 6 dimensions, right? Strategy, recruitment, blah, blah, all the way to management. And there's a few things under that. So this is what we're going to dive into in the upcoming webinars, right? And these are all the themes. So as you see, there's like 110 subsets of each and every dimension in total of things that need to be carried. And the color coding on this, just so you guys understand what I'm trying to say, is just to say you need to start somewhere. So start with the red. This is critical. You really need to have this. And we'll probably massage this and change it a little bit depending on the wind. And then but this is what we consider, the red is must have, the green is nice to have, and the gray is things you're going to be a little by little on top of this as you are evolving through your partner maturity model, starting from nascent to a world-class organization with like a few steps in between, which we'll talk about also the maturity model for partners because we have one. So that's it for me. I just want to share that for a second so people can take screenshots.
No, that's excellent, Gilles, and we managed to conclude it just in time. We got just the last few seconds, so we look forward to seeing you guys at our next webinar. Meanwhile, this will be posted to the website, I believe, and to our various channels. So please share it with your friends, and look forward to carrying on the conversation. And thank you so much, Jill, for all your
And
very
we'll
valuable.
make this matrix that I just presented available for people to grab it if they want. There's no secret here. We're trying to help everybody. So
Thank you, Jill.
thanks, everybody. Have a great day.